Hello! Today I'm going to introduce myself, reply some questions that you guys just asked me on Instagram. And I received brilliant questions in like an hour, so I really appreciate that. I know that it was a community of brilliant people. This is also going to be the first video of this year, and I'm excited because it feels like kind of affirming like my personality, my presence online. Okay, let's start with the basic introduction. So my name is İclal. But whenever I speak a different language, I just adapt my name to that language, and I do it without thinking. Like if I'm speaking Russian, I'm going to tell you that my name is İclal. If I'm speaking Italian, I'm going to introduce myself as İclal. And I literally don't think about it, like, because when you're speaking that language, it just goes with the flow. Call me whatever that sounds like my name. I turned 21 a few months ago, and I always forget my age. I'm like, am I 20 years old, 22 years old, but no, I'm 21 years old. I've been on social media since 2019, I guess. But my presence on social media was never super regular. Sometimes when I meet a friend, they're like, are you still doing that YouTube thing? And I get so offended because what do you mean I'm still doing that YouTube thing? I always do that thing. And then I realized that I uploaded like 5 videos in a year. For me, the regularity on social media has been difficult for a lot of different factors, but I've analyzed the situation in the past months, and now I can understand like what I should be doing, what I should be doing, what I should pay attention to. I'm just trying to like show up at least once a week on YouTube and more regularly on other types of short content. So basically one of the questions I received was how I started doing YouTube videos. I always really liked storytelling and talking about like my own experiences in life, so that's why I'm on social media. I feel like this is something that I would do anyway because I really like connecting with people, and I don't like necessarily connecting with people around me, like people in my space, because there's no guarantee that they are the right people for you. You should always just look somewhere else. I think there are interesting people like anywhere in the world, and you should never be limited to people from like where you're from or like people who have the same background as you. So social media is something that I would be definitely doing. Now I think I will get into different languages and talk about my language learning journey. Well, I'm a Turkish native speaker and I was born and raised in Turkey. I moved abroad to Italy when I was 18. Both my parents are native Turkish, they don't speak a different language, and I haven't been abroad until I was 17 and I went to Netherlands. After Turkish, I started learning English when I was, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old, but the education in Turkey isn't just really the best. But I was still like working on my own to improve my English, but then English just stopped being interesting for me. Then I started learning French when I was literally 10 years ago. I started learning French, and then I improved my French for several years. I almost reached like C1 proficiency in French. During the lockdown, I started learning Italian in January, Spanish in May, German and Russian in October. And then the next year I went to Netherlands and I was like, this makes no sense, I have to learn Dutch now. I learned some Dutch. The next year I started learning Swedish. The next year I started learning Finnish. So that's where we are at right now. I speak 10 languages. I have C2 certificates in French and Italian. I have C1 certificates in German, Russian and Spanish. Yeah, and I'm pretty much fluent in every language except for Finnish, which I'm currently studying at A2 level. Among all those languages, I often get asked about my least favorite and most favorite languages. I always say that my most favorite languages are French and Russian, which always feel like my native languages that I chose for myself. I don't have a least favorite language, I guess, because why would you not like something that you spend time and effort on learning? It's a question of preference, but I don't want to affirm something like that. I also often get asked about personality changes while speaking different languages. I think this is obvious to a lot of multilingual people, and you guys can also probably realize it while watching my content. I feel like my voice and personality changes in certain languages. For instance, I would say that I'm the most friendly when I speak Russian because throughout my life I probably had like more Russian friends, and I find it easier to make friends with Russian-speaking people, not necessarily from Russia. So I feel like I always instinctively act more friendly when I speak Russian. You also asked about the hardest language to learn, and I think the hardest language to learn depends on the person and the experience. So if we were talking objectively, I could just say Finnish is the hardest language to learn, but in my case, Russian was the hardest language because while learning it, I didn't really like it. I had this assumption since my childhood that I was gonna learn Russian someday. I don't know what kind of person comes up with that. I didn't like it at the beginning until I met with Russian music and everything else. Okay, let's talk about motivation behind learning languages. I've reflected a lot on this during the past year because we always say like, I want to learn new languages because I want to connect with people. Then I realized that I learn new languages for the exact opposite reason. I feel like I have to elaborate this, otherwise it sounds super weird. Like imagine you are in an environment and something kind of annoys you, or you don't feel understood, you don't feel like you can fully be yourself. Then you can just create yourself additional identities through new languages, and you can just change environments as well. So it adds layers to your personality. Tell me if that makes sense or if I sound crazy. I simply like being able to listen to music from all these different languages and understand everything. I love reading different books. I love making friends from different countries and not experiencing any cultural difficulties while doing it. I feel like this is maybe something difficult to relate to if we are not having similar experiences. I hope there are at least a few people who can relate to what I said, because this isn't something that you can talk with everyone, because this is such a rare experience. I just feel like I wasn't created to speak one language, and that's it. I've also received a question about if I'm learning any new languages this year, and I want to say that I probably won't. Lately I've been thinking a lot about this language learning identity, and I realized that I just don't view myself as like a language learning person only, and I want to do things with the languages that I'm learning. And at this point I'm really happy with the languages I have and I want to improve them, but it's not like I have to achieve new things in order to feel happy with myself. I've achieved a lot of things in my life and I don't feel like I have to achieve new things continuously. Like not every year has to come with new goals. And other than that, I'm not interested in any new languages at the moment. There are a lot of languages that I find beautiful. Like my recent favorites, Ukrainian, for example, has always been my favorite. But now I don't see myself learning a different Slavic language because, as I said, I don't want to keep doing entirely new things in order to be happy with myself. I think I can also appreciate this language without necessarily having to learn it. I also worked a lot on Norwegian and Danish during the past semester. I listen to Norwegian and Danish regularly. I read in those languages regularly, but still, I don't feel like I just have to go and study those languages in order to feel like I'm doing something with them. You can also use languages without learning them after some level of language background. It's like, I don't know, does that make sense? But yeah. So I just don't want to be a person who learns languages to learn languages, you know? That's also something that really matters for me on social media because I take language learning so seriously and I always try to stay mindful about that. I know I have the skills that would bring me like thousands of followers overnight, but I don't want any kind of superficial language learning representation. I know that I can simply make a video like, hey, I'm İclal, I'm 21 years old, in 10 languages, and like social media loves that kind of things, but I don't want to do that. I don't want people to follow me because I'm another language learning personality. I want people to follow me because I am me. I also feel like my presence on social media aligns with that because my growth has been rather slow and conscious because I really don't want to stay superficial and I want my community to understand me for who I am, like take me for who I am and not just like another fun social media personality who just speaks 10 languages as a fun fact. It's not something like being left-handed, it's like something that people work for years. Now I slowly want to switch to my studies and life in Italy. For the ones of you who don't know, I've been living in Milan since 2023 and I'm doing my bachelor in political science in Italian and I'm at my third year currently, so yeah. First of all, is studying in a foreign language hard? So in my case, thanks to my French background, it hasn't been extremely difficult. But also, I acknowledge how much difficulties I had during my first year. If there is one thing that I regret about studying Italian, it would be like, I'm in a class full of Italians, I'm the only person whose native language is not Italian, and I feel like I have no one like-minded in my class. If I had studied in English, I would at least have some people like me who are interested in doing things that I do, more global-minded people. But in my class, when someone discovers that I'm a foreigner who has been learning Italian for the past 5 years, their first reaction is, why? Because I think a lot of people can't really wrap their minds around the fact that someone learns a language to such good level and attends a university program. Like, not something you would do unless you have to do it. So I would really appreciate having more like-minded people around me. But still, I feel like the time I spend at university and my experience is more about me than it's about other people. And I also got asked if I had any adaptation difficulties in Italy. I feel like Italy is not the most difficult country to get used to because it's a Mediterranean country. I also come from a Mediterranean culture. And although Milan is not the best representation of Italy, I feel quite at ease living there. I had no adaptation problems. Sometimes I don't know if Italy is the right country for me, even though I know that Milan is the right city for me. Italians are really positive and nice people, but I sometimes feel like it's superficial and they don't feel that way about you. So that's why when I go to like a German-speaking country, I always feel super comfortable and respected. And it's always really surprising to me when people have negative experiences in countries like Germany, France, and they are telling on social media like everyone is so rude in Paris. I don't understand what you're talking about. So Italians are really nice people and I have never had serious adaptation difficulties because they are like an easygoing society. So since I'm my last year at university, I also get questions about what I'm going to do after graduation. I wanna tell that this is kind of a stressful topic because I plan on graduating this year, not necessarily this summer, because I still have a lot of exams to take. And the thing in Italy is that you can accept or reject your marks and you can take the exam again, like next month, in 3 months, or if you want next year. So with the perfectionist I am, it's kind of difficult. Like 2 weeks ago I took an exam and I think it's probably the most difficult exam of our political science course, and it's an oral exam, so you find out your mark right after the exam. And the professor was like, you got 24 out of 30. And I'm just like... And he said, are you taking it or not? And I was like, no. And now if I gotta admit, I kind of regret it because it was only like 6 credits and I could have just continued with my life, but I said no. I just don't know if I'm going to stay in Milan, I don't know if I'm going to stay in Italy, I don't know if I'm going to move to another country, I don't know if I'm going to do a master, I don't know if I'm going to work, I don't know anything. So I just kind of get stressed when people ask me about this, but I also know that it depends on me and I have the skills to achieve anything I want. We shouldn't talk about this probably. So now we will talk about traveling. I've been traveling for the past 3 years, mainly in Europe. And since I'm based in Milan, it's kind of like easier because Milan is super central and my university schedule is also more on the flexible side, so I can say that it's not really difficult for me to find the time to travel. I've heard a lot of people who do similar things to me on social media tell that they always get paid to travel. I really appreciate that for them, but personally I never got paid to travel. Like the thing is, like I always pay for my own travels. My family also is not responsible of paying for my travels or anything because it's like I have a quite normal income family, and a normal income family in Turkey is not a normal income family in Europe. So it's not like it's my parents' job to pay for my travels. I always do it for myself. So thanks to videos I'm doing online, I've been financially independent from my parents since a very young age, and I acknowledge that that's a huge privilege to be like in this situation. But I also appreciate that I have the real world skills as well, so I could do anything on social media or in real life. But for now I have a social media job and that's all. And I don't know if I want to do something in real life because I've never experienced that. And I want to have a job where I can use my skills and I feel valuable for using them. Because this summer I kind of tried working with my friend. She has to deal with customers from all different countries, and I realized that this job maybe doesn't have a lot of requirements, but when I spent there a day, I spoke to people in like Dutch, in French, and they would come to me and speak Dutch. Like, we are in Istanbul and you're talking to me in Dutch, and I surprisingly can also talk Dutch, but if that's not a job requirement and if I'm still doing it, I feel like this makes no sense and I would feel like I'm being used for my skills without them being appreciated. So I feel like in order for me to get a real life job, it really has to be something that appreciates me. And we will see if that comes. Now I think I will go with a few general questions we have. Most fascinating place you have visited. As I said, I've only been around Europe. If I have to really choose a place that really affected me, it would be Rome. I have really special feelings for that city, but yet I wouldn't go and live there. Rome is just a perfect city to spend like a week in, then you have to leave. Like, you have to go back to Milan, you have to go back to somewhere else, you can't stay in Rome. But still, it's one of my favorite places. I also have really profound feelings for Stockholm. And my childhood dream has always been seeing Northern Lights. I remember this super vividly. I dreamt of that and I was like, maybe if I learn languages then improve myself as a person, I can get to see that. So that's my number one dream that I haven't realized yet. I want to see the Northern Lights. How did you become more confident? I feel like you kind of have to feel that you're confident and accept that people don't have evil intentions against you. People are mostly neutral or even positive to each other, so if you act like confident and if you can carry yourself around and if you act in a nice way to everyone, then I feel like the confidence isn't even much needed. Like, you have to be proud of yourself in private so that you can be confident in public. And I also think that comes with practice. Like, you have to practice showing up, you have to practice being confident, so at the end you can appear as a confident person. I also got a few questions about my mental health and how I've been feeling lately. I'm doing really good since like September, October, I guess, but last spring it was like my life had no sense and I don't even remember what I was doing, what I was feeling. It was like that time of my life didn't even exist. I have done a lot of self-reflection, I worked a lot on myself, so now I think I'm doing pretty good. I especially feel good enough to show up on social media, because when I was talking to my therapist, she's like, I feel like you have to take a break from social media. I'm like, I'm on a break. Like, I'm not even on social media. I like post once a month if I feel like doing it. And I only show up on social media if I'm feeling good about myself, if I feel good enough to be there. Like, if you see me posting like YouTube videos or Instagram stories, it means that I'm actually doing good. And when I'm not doing good, I don't post anything and I just disappear because I don't feel like existing in front of people. I feel like many things are getting better and I also accept my role in doing things better, so I can say that I'm in a more positive mindset recently. Someone replied that this could be a weird question, but they feel like I've had a lot of toxic friendships and how I was dealing with that. I realized something for myself, like, friendships are optional, whether we accept it as a society or not, but you're not supposed to thrive because you have a lot of friends, and in the same way you're not supposed to suffer because you don't have friends. So I've separated my ways with a lot of friends the past 2 years, but this year it didn't affect me that much. Like, I didn't even care about it because I understand that when a friendship is over, it's not like because they are your enemy or you are their enemy. It's just people become different people over time, and it's okay if the friendship is not going any longer. In my case, I will only ever end a friendship or my relationship with someone if I feel disrespected by the person, or if I feel like they are being my friend but they actually don't feel really good about me, or they're feeling jealous about me, they have bad intentions about me. These are the only cases in which I would end a friendship, but sometimes you just don't talk to someone for months because, like, we are adults and everyone has a different life and different problems. But if I feel like if we are still on good terms and the person doesn't feel anything bad against me, then why would I cut the person off? I'm very selective when it comes to friendships because I've also made peace with the fact that probably someone like me cannot have a lot of friends. Like, it's just not possible, and I should be in peace with having few people around me. I've also received a question about the cameras I use to film. When I make stable videos like this and when I take photos, I mostly use my Sony. When I'm making vlogs, like travel vlogs, or if I have to film in an easier way, I use my Osmo, and I also have an iPhone 15 Pro Max that I use for daily type of content. I'm happy with all three, and yeah, they all serve their own purposes, I guess. I also got asked if I travel alone or with friends, and a lot of people are also wondering why I'm always alone. I want to say that just because you see me alone, it doesn't mean that I'm alone. I don't prefer posting friends unless they are doing social media themselves, because you never know if people are comfortable being on social media, if they personally consent for that, and if they really want to be there, I can. When it comes to traveling alone, sometimes I'm alone, sometimes I'm with friends, but I also make a lot of friends when I'm traveling. Like recently when I went to Stockholm, a girl texted me that she was also going to Stockholm and we had to meet because, like, she was also living in Milan and she was coming from Estonia and I speak Finnish. She was like, we have to meet, and I was like, okay, we can meet. And I always have this kind of random encounters with people, and I feel like I couldn't find those type of people if I actively looked for them. It's just like they come to you and you make new friends on social media. Like, the thing is, let's say I'm traveling to a place and a girl texts me and like they have a profile photo, or they have texted me in the past, they have replied a few stories. I assume that they are a trustworthy person, so I meet them, or the girls who was at Milan, and they're like, do you want to take a coffee? And if we have some chat background, I mostly accept it if I have free time. Having a community like this brings a lot of interesting people that you literally couldn't find elsewhere, so yeah, I don't actually like make friends going up to people, but a lot of friends find me, and I'm really happy with that. This is one of my favorite questions. It's about the dreams I have in different languages, or whether I have dreams in different languages. The thing I love about this question is that everyone asking this thinks that they're the first person to ask that. They're like, maybe this is a weird question, but no, like I love talking about this because multilingual people have the weirdest dreams, and every day, like when I wake up, I send an audio message to my best friend and I'm like, you can't imagine what happened in my dream. The other day I was in Sweden and I want to go to Istanbul with a bus, but I ended up in Uzbekistan, and then sometimes I see that like I'm with my family but we're all speaking Russian. The other day I was in Armenia and I was speaking Danish. I took a break to see if we had any new questions, and other than the old ones, we have something new, a new remark. A fake account told me that my makeup looks really bad. I appreciate it. If you want a tutorial, just let me know in the comments. I got asked if I had met weird people because of the fact that I'm a polyglot, and I think I can talk about my weird experiences with police approaches. I don't know if that's scary or funny, but I still want to talk about that. My very first experience with the police was when I went to Moscow, and I think there are a few scarier things for a 19-year-old girl than getting interrogated by the Russian police on why you can speak Russian like that. She was so intrigued by me. I feel like you should hide your language skills from those people. When I was in Copenhagen, I got asked my ID, and I shoved my Turkish and Italian ID while speaking Swedish to that Danish police officer, and we also had a Russian tote bag. Then he got my information and called some of his colleagues, and yeah. Do you think they found me on social media and think I'm a cool and cute girl right now, or the entire opposite? Where do you usually get your clothes? Well, some of them are made by my mom. Some of them are secondhand or vintage, and some of them are just regular clothes. So if I get asked about a specific piece, and if I have the tag and everything, I just try to tell about it. But for me, the important thing is like having my own style, and I feel like what you wear and the fashion is like kind of like a way of expressing yourself. It's just like how you exist in the outside world. So I attribute a lot of importance to my own style and everything. Thankfully, I live in a city where everyone's so stylish and where being stylish is the norm. Sometimes people make you feel like you're being too much, but Milan is definitely not one of those cities, and you could just exist in the way you want. Someone asked if I still get hate comments online and if that affects me, because in my previous video I mentioned that when I started out with YouTube, I used to get a lot of hate comments from adult men, and they would just discourage me from making videos. Like, it's not only the adult men right now, but I feel like if you're doing something on social media and you are not getting any kind of like contradiction or hate, it feels like then you're doing something really basic. So now that kind of comments don't really have a lot of importance on my life. And I feel like those statements from people can only have the importance that you attribute to them. So if you simply don't think anything about it, then negative comments can just keep existing and you can do your work, because someone is always going to say something, and let's appreciate their courage for self-expression. That was all for this video. There are still some questions that I didn't answer, but I've been filming for too long now. Thanks for being here, and hopefully this year I can create much more beautiful content more regularly. And yeah, you can follow me on different social media platforms. See you next week with a new video. Bye!